Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas again. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So this GOP healthcare bill, the Graham Cassidy bill, I actually make sure I'm coming out first. Everything is green, the world is good, I'm seeing myself and I'm hearing myself. Great. Alright. I hadn't covered this bill because I didn't necessarily think it had a good chance of passing. But I do want to talk about it now because there was a little bit of news today about it. So there were protests in the Congressional Hall on this bill. Progressive Independence Party, Draft Sanders, Our Revolution, hint, hint, be there and give those people coffee and back those people up. You're going to need those people. And I'm sorry, this is a detour. But you're going to need those people. When you're doing whatever you're doing, I don't necessarily know what you're doing, but when you're doing what you're doing, you're going to want those people remembering that you stood by their side when they were out here doing this. And those people will come to your aid when you need them. Right, I'll leave it at that. There were protests. There were strident protests. Clever, creative protests. Protests that will leave a bad mark because it looks immensely bad to do what they did today. They ejected those protesters from the hall. Essentially, you have images of them taking people out in wheelchairs. Let's take a look at this and we'll talk about it after. Where is it? This. This is awesomely clever, by the way. I love it. I love it. Absolutely love it. All right. That is intense. That is intense. Cops, man. I give you a certain amount of money and you just do whatever you're told to do. It doesn't necessarily matter the surrounding things that are going on. It doesn't matter that you're in the wrong. You might be in the wrong for doing it. I need you to roll these people out in wheelchairs. They're bugging us. Yes, we're trying to take their Medicaid away in many of these places. Yes, we're trying to actually hurt these people with our legislation. But take these people away. It's just a crummy job, that's all. Somebody could make the argument that cops are needed and cops are... That's the side point. It looks bad having somebody roll somebody out in a wheelchair because they're trying to defend their Medicare or their Medicaid. They're trying to defend their health care. They're in need of health care. As somebody who's had a pretty intense history in regards to needing healthcare, me talking about myself, I understand what those people are feeling. I understand why those people are going to those lengths. These guys are trying to take away their healthcare. This is a life or death thing for them. Republicans are doing this for some political gimmicky reason. We want to get rid of the ACA. We have a House, Senate, and the Supreme Court. This is a perfect opportunity to get rid of the ACA. We don't give a shit about the actual people who actually need health care. I mean, say what you want to say. There are, 20 million more people that got health care because of the ACA. Yes, there's still 20 million people who don't have health care. And yes, a lot of people who have health care still go bankrupt. Incrementally, it's a change. I would imagine that those people want to keep their health care, the people that were able to get it. Republicans are not giving a good, decent reason for doing it. They don't have a good, decent reason for doing it. Anybody in their right mind. Donald Trump himself said everybody was going to have health care and it was going to be big and beautiful. What about now? Is that a promise that Trump kept or not? I understand these people support Trump and all that other stuff. Is Trump keeping his promise on health care? He's trying to gut health care from everybody. Meaning everybody, or many of these people who got the opportunity to get health care because of Obamacare, they're going to gut it and they're going to try to take away Medicaid or parts of Medicaid with it. Do you honestly believe that this is Donald Trump keeping his promise on health care? And beyond that point, You understand they're doing this purely for political gamesmanship. Lower my taxes. That's the Republicans' mantra. Lower my taxes. The people who give them money so they can lower their taxes. Well, guess what? Obamacare raised a certain amount of tax on a certain segment of the population. Those people want that tax taken away. Yes, they want to take away people's health care to give other people a tax cut. A tax cut that those people probably won't even notice in their bank accounts. I'm just amazed by American politics, man. That's gross on so many levels. That's immensely gross on so many levels. And the idea that you have a huge number of Republicans that are okay with this. They're pushing for it. Now, you might have John McCain being a handout and somebody else, like 2 or 3 people being a handout, which will prevent this from going through. But should people have to go to Congress and do this and behave and perform in this way? They're not doing it because they want to. I'm pretty sure that woman that got rolled out in a wheelchair had better things to do with her day. But she had to spend it being rolled out of Congress, screaming about, don't take away my health care. I need my health care to live and survive. And you're trying to take away my health care. Keep your hands off my health care. How much did we spend on that budget? $1 trillion, almost $1 trillion. And we're forcing the citizens of the country to perform and behave in this way. This image that I have up here, the woman is essentially saying, give me your poor, your sick, and your huddle masses. Grim Reaper. Signed by the Grim Reaper. Whether or not, and look, I just make a point. I don't believe this bill is going to go through. The Graham Cassidy bill. But whether it goes through or not, somewhat besides the point. I mean, it is a big deal if it goes through, but again, assume for the moment that it doesn't go through. You still had a situation where people are trying to get rid of the health care of other people for purely political reasons. Your political apparatus doesn't work. No political apparatus in his right mind would try to take away health care from people from purely political reasons. There's no there to this. There's no reality to this. They just want to get rid of health care. They don't give a shit about the population. They don't give a shit about the people in the public itself that this bill would adversely affect. They just want to get rid of health care. That's amazing. I just find it to be a mind-blowing thing. Like, the severity of that to me is mind-blowing. It's terrifying. I don't understand why this is just regular politics. That's all. It's like we look at this and we see, oh, this is what the Republicans are doing. And people are not aghast by this. They're not aghast by this. They're not hunting these guys down. They're not running with these guys at pitchforks. They're looking at these guys as if they're classy members of society that are just kind of upholding some standard. What is the standard they're upholding? Trying to take health care away from people. Amazing. All of them will put their name down on the budget for $800 billion to go murder people abroad. And these people have to behave in this way in order to maintain health care. Find this to be atrocious behavior. I just don't get it. I don't get it. Why is this normal and why is this okay? And why doesn't the rest of the American public see this and do something? I don't know what the something is. To notice, to care, to bitch, to moan, to say, what the fuck are these guys doing? Why am I voting for these guys? Why are these guys in office? Something other than apathy. Something other than apathy. I'm just amazed by this. The last Democratic president put through a healthcare plan called the universal healthcare and still left 20, 30 million people off the vote healthcare rolls. Still couldn't afford healthcare. The option that the Democratic Party had been pushing for since the inception of the Democratic Party, at the very least in modern history Democratic Party, going back to FDR. Healthcare for all. We want everybody covered. That president put through a Republican plan that still left, again, 20-some million people uncovered. It wasn't the best option. The best option was off the table. Why is the best outcome always out of reach? You had a Democratic House, you had a Democratic Senate, you had a Democratic president. And what you ended up with was a Republican healthcare plan. I'm asking, why are we still talking about healthcare? Shouldn't it have been done right the first time around? Shouldn't have been done right the first time around. One of the largest indignities that I think was on the presidency of Obama was at the end when he realized his healthcare plan was to some degree failing a lot of people. And he said, we should have did the public option. We should have did the public option. 8 years. 8 years of a presidency. And we're now talking about healthcare. And healthcare was supposed to be his signature achievement. And we're now still talking about healthcare. Show me what you believe in. Show me what you do legislatively, and I show you your values. You put Obamacare out, a Republican healthcare plan. What are your values that you're going to put a plan out like that? All I'm saying is, if you're going to do a plan, you should do it right. Universal healthcare, they considered it a non-starter. It wasn't a non-starter. They just didn't want to talk about it. There's a difference in those things. You should have pushed Medicare for all, at the very least a public option, and at the very least we would not be having this conversation about healthcare right now. These guys are trying to strip healthcare away. If Obamacare had the support of something like Medicare, Medicare is what, 70-80% approval rating, they wouldn't dare touch it. It would be untouchable. Obamacare is getting this kind of affirmation now, but it's only in degrees, meaning it's only in difference. It's the comparison between what Republicans are trying to push versus, at the very least, what Obamacare does. And the public has a clear understanding that what the Republicans are trying to do makes no sense. Legislative, it makes no sense. It in no way helps the American public. It makes no sense. This is purely politics. If you want to make a case, though, Obamacare was also just politics. What was the right thing to do? This is kind of what I'm trying to make. The best outcome was out of reach. The best outcome wasn't even discussed. The best technical solution, how do you give health care to everybody in the country, is a technical question. That's a technical question. How do you do it? What's the best way to do it? You look around the world. What are the systems that are decent? What are the systems that cover everybody? How do they cover everybody? The United States is the richest country on this planet. If they can do it, certainly the United States can do it. Best outcome is out of reach. Wasn't discussed. Wasn't talked about. The only thing the Democrats could come up with was a plan by the Republican Party. A market-driven solution to healthcare. What about a human-driven solution to healthcare? What about looking at it and say, hey, what's the best way for the human being in this case? What's the best scenario for the person, for the individual? Not necessarily what's the best case scenario for the market. Can't believe we're still talking about healthcare. Hundreds of activists gathered on Capitol Hill on Monday morning in protest of the Republicans' later beleaguered attempt to repeal the Affordable Care Act, with many saying they were prepared to be arrested. Shortly after the hearing began, some protesters in wheelchairs were physically removed from the hearing room by police officers as protesters continued to chant, "No cuts to Medicaid." Senator Orrin Hatch put the committee in recess while police removed the protesters. Later, he told the shouting activists that if they can't remain quiet, then get the heck out. The heck out. You're a grown man, dude. You can say hell. Senator Bill Cassidy, the main sponsor of the repeal legislation, appeared undisturbed by the activists' opposition. He was observed yawning as some protesters were forcibly removed. Oh, he's a hard ass. I don't give a shit about these people's Medicaid. Yeah, that's amazing. These people are protesting and screaming and yelling. Mind you, they don't want to be here. If they had a government that worked, they wouldn't be there. But they're there. And are these guys out yet? I want to get along with my legislation, taking away their Medicaid. When asked about reports of protesters being arrested, U.S. Capitol Police Communications Director Eva Mickey, oh God, I'm horrible with names, told HuffPost in an email that police are still processing the arrests and will issue a statement when activists have concluded. These people are heroic. They're heroic. What I wish, in my wildest dreams, what I wish is that when something like this happens, that they have so many people that they can't process the arrests, that it all comes to a halt. You have 1 million people in there willing to be arrested, and they take out one person after the next, 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 after the next. I don't want there to be enough policemen to be able to take out the number of people that are there. I want to shut the place down. I want it to burn to the ground. I want all of it to come to a halt. I want you to have so many numbers that it becomes impossible to do business. That's what I want. I want this kind of intersectional thing where people understand that the problems that affect you are the same problems that affect me. And if it's something that adversely affects you, then yes, I'm going to be there for you, because I want you to be there for me when something comes up that adversely affects me. That's what I want. In my wildest dreams, that's what I want. That's not what we get. We get a certain segment of the population that it affects, and the rest of the people don't care. So let's see. Anyone expecting Bernie, Hillary, Pelosi, Schumer, Obama to take a knee over healthcare? Me either. D. Martin. A bit of a smart ass, but I like it. Everyone that passes ACA was Democrat. They had total control despite being the big show to debate with Republicans. Every single one Democrat that have passed anything and let Republicans try to repeal after 4 to 8 years. It's sad, right? Your biggest achievement was incrementalism. And if Mike Pence was president, it would be gone by now. I honestly believe that the reason they're not doing it is because of Trump. I don't know if they... Look, I don't think they give a shit about their constituents, if I'm being honest. I think John McCain dislikes Trump. I think John McCain doesn't want to give Trump a legislative victory. I think he could be that petty. I honestly do. If there was a different person in that office, somebody who's more like Mike Pence, I think they probably would have killed Obamacare by now. Donald Trump, ironically, is the protector of the ACA. Not intentionally, just by virtue of who Donald Trump is. It's amazing. It's politics. It's weird. Or Republicans support Medicare for all. Screw punching a Nazi. Where's the lobbyist at? What? Think that's bad. The whole country has been stuck in healthcare for decades. Yes, I do think that's bad. I think that's horrible. I just find it weird and somewhat sad and pathetic, and this kind of condemnation of our values as a country, that we're willing to spend massive amounts of money on military, but not to make sure that the citizens of the country itself have health care. Ronald Reagan is talking about a goddamn shining city on a hill. All of them use this thing about this kind of shining city on a hill as if the sparkling image of what? Of what? You can't even supply health care to the citizens of that country. Those images, that propaganda, all of those things are used to give you this kind of image of something that doesn't exist in reality. I would prefer to have it in reality. If you want a shiny city on the hill, you got to pay for a shiny city on the hill. That thing costs money. It costs dollars. That means you're going to have to tax your population. Don't tell me about a shiny city on the hill and cutting taxes to some magnificent degree that adversely affect the services in that particular country. It's propaganda. They use marketing. That's it. Obama was a brand. I'm sorry. I understand people love him to death. He has a great smile. He has a great singing voice. He has a great persona. He was a marketing gimmick. Make America Great Again. Same thing. As Obama cut for a Republican audience. Yes. He doesn't compete in regards to academics, in regards to merit, intelligence. Yes. He doesn't compete in that sense. But if you're talking about the branding, yes, the branding for the most part is the same. It's just cut for a Republican audience. Hope and change, all that stuff. Make America great again. Same difference. They're sadists. Our suffering is their shiny city. Catherine Hurries. See, it's funny. It depends on whether you think apathy is sadism. Like, It's one thing to say, I hate your guts, so I'm okay with you suffering. It's another thing to say, I'm going to advantage myself and I just don't give a shit what happens to you. I don't know which is worse. And they may be equal in the sense of how they end up materially. Tabitha Enriquez, they do not need to maintain our health. We are expendable to quote unquote them now. Moved on to other countries and labor forces. Well, yeah, of course, it's capitalism. They're capitalists. They're capitalists. What are they supposed to do? This is kind of my point. A lot of the stuff, you can be mad at the individual, but understand that individual is just one cog in a larger wheel. You can put pretty much anybody in that spot and those people will behave the same way. Those things are somewhat forces that are acting upon those people to behave in a particular way. I need to maximize my profit. How do I maximize my profit? How do I advantage myself more? I advantage myself more by dropping my labor costs. Okay. I'm going to ship that job overseas. That's a drop in my labor costs. I'm going to put in a robot. That's dropping my labor costs. I'm also going to try to find ways to buy product cheaper. So yeah, if I can buy a product in China for a cheaper price, I'm going to buy the product in China for a cheaper price. If the American company can't lower that price, which means there's also pressure to lower the cost of their labor. In each section of the society itself, you have a pressure on labor costs. Your wages aren't rising because there's a pressure on labor costs just built into the model itself. You've expanded the playing field with regards to jobs, yes. You're going to have a harder time raising labor costs. Meaning the amount of money you get for labor. People are going to get paid less, or they're not going to just get paid. They're going to get rid of those jobs entirely. Robert Perky. I wrote a history paper on how natives experienced colonization. Called it City on a Hill of Bones. Pretty much a genocide, yeah. Advantage myself by making things fall apart real fast and make it as shitty as possible. Yay, more money. Yeah, that too. That's a wild part, by the way. So, and I just mean wild, but in the sense of it makes no sense from a rational point of view, thinking about the larger world. But in the context of the capitalistic system, yes, you're in a game space. Yes, the goal is to maximize profit. You have a finite planet. You have a finite planet. There's a certain amount of resources that your planet can sustain. Meaning, there's a certain amount of people your planet can sustain. From our standpoint, we say, how can we maximize our profit? On the first part. On the second part, you have people who need jobs. So, if I make something that lasts for a very long time, I'm going to lose profits. They're not going to buy my product if my product lasts for 10 years. You also have this issue of, if I am not making profit on this case, I'm not hiring workers. In order for me to maintain my job site, in order for me to maintain my product, my capital base, yeah, I am going to make a product that dies off pretty soon. I have to. I don't have a choice. Think about that. We're geared as society around based with finite planet, but there's an incentive for them to use product as fast as possible to make more profit. How long does it take to mine those materials? How long does it take to make those plastics? And we're making shitty products to be thrown away. Those are materials that can be used for something else. Or make the product that it lasts. That's good common sense if you're looking from the standpoint of the entire world and the fact that we're using finite resources. Make a product that lasts. Make products that are somewhat interchangeable parts, so those parts can just be updated, but you still have the same material itself. You don't necessarily have to keep throwing something away every time you get something new. That's not how we do it. That's not how we do it. Our system says we need to make as much cash as possible. If we, at the very least, have things that throw away and get destroyed soon, we can continue to have those workers. Even with this idea of demand, we don't really have demand per se. We have markets. Meaning we're marketed to, we're advertised to. Hey, we have this new product out. Buy this new product. Yes, you have this product already, but buy another one. Yes, you have a pair of shoes, but yes, buy another pair. Yes, you have 5 pairs of shoes, but hey, LeBron James wears these shoes. You gotta have these shoes. You need this necklace. You need this bracelet. You need this new pair of jeans. You need this new shirt. You need to come to Old Navy, 70% off, 50% off. You don't need those things. You don't need those things at all. We have enough materials to give everybody around the planet the things that they need. That's not profitable. It's profitable to just continue to market to you. Consumption society. Think about that. Finite planet. We build a society based on consumption. I'm just saying, this is not a rational way to run a society. It's not a rational way to run a world. But we have a capitalistic system. That system doesn't care about the wider world itself. It's just built on how do we make profit? How do we maximize our profit? How do we get more? We just need more. We just need more. How much is too much? There's no such thing as too much. We just need more. The more we get, the more meritorious we are. What about the wider world? What about the society itself that's crumbling based upon the behavior that you guys are taking on? What are you talking about? We're meritorious. We're maximizing our profits. The game space says we're supposed to maximize our profits. Yo, look, the ultimate question is, can you blame the individual who's part of these societies or these CEOs? Can you blame the CEOs if they're in a game space that tells them to behave a particular way? Anybody who's in that slot behaves that particular way. If that's true. If it's true that if a person gets locked up for something, say it's not a CEO, he had a difficult life. He had a particular person, yes. He made certain choices, yes. But understand that particular person was ensconced in a society. The experiences that he had, the people that he met, the culture that he grew up in, all of those things affected the individual. That particular individual, yes, again, there's an aspect of self that's him, but that him is completely constrained based upon the society that he grew up in. Now, if I make the case that you put an individual on trial, that you also have to put that society on trial with him, because that individual didn't necessarily just have this free will. He wasn't, I am making all of these decisions without anything acting upon me as I make these decisions. The society also needs to be on trial. That person didn't necessarily come out of the womb behaving a particular way. There were societal factors that shaped who he was, that shaped his value system, shaped the things that he wanted, shaped the things that he was told that he should have and the ways that he should behave. It wasn't left to his own devices. Isn't the same true for the CEO? Isn't the same true for the CEO? Isn't the same true for the bankers, the money grubbers who went to Congress crying and bitching about, we need money. Please give us money. We fucked up, but we need money. And then complain when somebody says, call them fat cats. And all those others, how dare they call us fat cats? We're capitalists. We're the noble capitalists. We finance the economy. Isn't the same true for them? Meaning, if you give the benefit of the doubt to the other person, don't you also have to give the benefit of the doubt? And benefit of the doubt is the wrong word. Don't you also have to kind of add in societal factor in their behavior? I'm saying you're ruled by a system of sorts. It's not necessarily the individual. There is no person pulling the strings. It's the model itself. It's software. It's your society is run based on a particular software. The individuals in that society are somewhat cogs in a wheel. Yes, they're subordinate to their own creation. You've created this kind of market capitalist system. The people you put in that are going to behave in particular ways. It doesn't matter the person. You may have certain degrees of ranges that people behave in. But ultimately, the software compels those people to behave a particular way. It works both ways. To the lowest common denominator, to the highest. If you give the benefit of the doubt to the person who had a rough means all the way through, you also have to hold out this idea that the people who are in the CEOs and these financial industries are somewhat mentally damaged. The society itself, the environments that they grew up in, made them think or have them thinking a particular way. Yes, I said mentally ill. It works both ways. It works both ways. The problem is the system itself. The problem is systemic. It's not one individual. It's not. I know people talk about deep state and everything else. Ultimately, what you're talking about is a model. You're talking about a system. It compels certain behavior. It's not crazy for a person to try to maximize their profit, particularly when they understand that they're living in a society that has scarcity. It's not crazy. You would want people to have a certain amount of integrity about themselves. But I don't know why you would think that. Bob Remersa may as well ask what motivates the shitty car salesman. Well, same thing that motivates the shitty car salesman is the same thing that motivates your congressman and the guy who's at that company and the guy that you work with that's angling for that particular job. All those things are the same. All those motivations are the same. There's a certain amount of pressure that's applied, but all those things are the same. That shitty car salesman has a wife and kid to feed. He's fucking you over because he has a wife and kid to feed. Now you can say, dude, I wish you wouldn't fuck me over, but ultimately he has a wife and kid to feed. Which one matters more? I'm not trying to give him a pass. I'm not trying to give any of them a pass. I'm saying something can be true. Yeah, something can just be true. It's just a flat fact. Our society is reared in a particular way. All of the parables and all of these other things, religion and everything else, goes with this idea of trying to get you to act contrary to the benefits of your society. You screwing people over to get advantage. It pays off. Let's be honest. I'm not saying you should do it. I'm just saying you can see how that particular behavior pays off. Now, in seeing how that behavior pays off, all of the parables and all of the movies and everything else prize this idea of integrity. They try to get you to behave in ways that are contrary to what advantages you. Your society gives you a feedback mechanism saying, hey, you've got more cash now. And having more cash, your range of freedom is increased. You have a little bit more status. People look at you in a particular way now. Yes, you did bad things. No, what you did had nothing to do with integrity. But your society doesn't ultimately care. I'm just saying. That's just the way it's organized. Game space is also a useful model, Jocasta. Yeah, I use the term game space for a reason. Because it's not real. People, it trips me out how people believe that this is real. Like, this is just the way human beings are, and this is just the natural way human beings have arranged themselves. Nothing can be further from the truth. People can arrange themselves in all sorts of ways. This is just a recent way we've organized ourselves. Every model seeks to persist itself. So people have propaganda to explain why this particular model is a great model and everything else. That's a model persisting itself. Any other arrangement would do the exact same thing. I try to get people to look at it as a game space because I want them to pull themselves out of it. That's all. For them to be able to see themselves in this kind of, from a third person perspective and look at where they are. What are we in? Why are we in this way? Does it have to be this way? Those are fascinating questions. Those are questions that should be asked of any model. Any model should seek to justify itself. Why is this structure in place? Why is it this way? Justify your existence. The existence by itself is not enough of justification. Particularly with the consequences. I've said it before, you live in a terrifying world. I don't say that for you to go around being terrified. I'm just saying the things that as human beings that we accept from our society is insane. The things that we accept from our government, the people who govern us, is insane. No rational civilization will look at what they're doing and say, okay, this is okay. I'm going to eat my Cheerios and go to bed and I'm going to be okay. These people protesting. Yes, that bill probably won't pass. But I wish, like I said before in my wildest dreams, people flood Congress like this for some of anything. If you have an approval rating on Congress that's like 10%, where are the protests? Where are the general protests? We have, what, 325 million people in this country. and they can only get 10% of people that like and believe what they're doing is okay. So 90% of the population, hell, let's say 75% of the population disapproves of what Congress is doing and the direction the country is going. Why can't you get 10 million people flooding Congress? I just don't understand. I don't understand how people just go along. That's all. That's all. I don't know where the organization is. We hate this. We don't like this. We want this shit to burn to the ground. All right, I'm going to work tomorrow. All right, I'm going to end this one. I got to be honest, I'm getting slightly tired. The first one kind of went long. The first one went like an hour. I was thinking of like a 10-minute thing, and it just kind of went on. People were talking, and I was talking, and at the point where everybody was talking, it's like, hey, keep it moving. Keep it moving. Bob Ramirez, the politics of division breaks apart attempts to form movements. Yes, that's true, but again, you're talking about the game space. Like you understand the politics, how people arrange and how people talk and the things that they use, like the weapons that they use. Those things are properties of the model. If the model says this is allowed, and if the model allows the behavior, then that behavior is going to take place, particularly if they believe they get an advantage from it. They're only doing things where they think they can get advantage. The wars that they have, the arguments that they make are purely there to try to get advantage. If they think that they can wedge a society, and that's the best policy to get a certain amount of votes, they're going to do it. They're compelled to do it by the model. That's what I'm saying. It's software. It's not this thing that people just behave this way naturally. It's what are the game space? What is the range of debate that we're willing to have in this game space? How can I use the game space itself to advantage myself? Can I jump off the side of the rails? Think of it as like a cage match. Can I use the cage? Yes. Okay, then I'm going to use the cage. Can I bring something in? Can I bring a weapon into the cage? Yes, you can bring a weapon into the cage. Then I'm going to bring a weapon into the cage. Can I knock out the ref? No, that's frowned upon. But can I get away doing it? Yes, you can get away with doing it. Okay, then I'm going to knock out the ref. It's frowned upon, but if I can get away with it, I'm going to do it. It's the game you're in. It's the game you're in. The politics of division are just part of the game. Understand, we have an adversarial system. Everything that we do in our system is adversarial. From a legal standpoint, from a political standpoint, even from the standpoint of the job that you need to get, it's adversarial. We build our system around conflict. That's our system. That's the fundamental basis of our system in every way. Conflict. For some reason, we believe that that conflict is going to just be localized to people with good sense and rational behavior. It is rational behavior within the game space to try to advantage yourself, even if that destabilizes the entirety of the game space. The game space is less important than you getting an advantage. Certainly at some point somebody was going to come along that said, fuck the game space. How can I get an advantage? If that means I take down the entire game space, then it means I take down the entire game space. You either let me win or we all burns. Certainly that was going to happen at some point. You have a capitalist system where these people fundamentally, in just their normal operations of business, don't care about the entirety of the game space. That's what I'm saying. There's no reason to think that politically it would be the same thing when you're giving these guys massive amounts of cash to take on certain behaviors. We shouldn't be shocked. That's all I'm saying. All of this is properties of the game itself. The players are going to do what it takes to win. The wider game space don't matter. What is allowed? What can I get away with? That's all that matters. That's all that matters. Alright. I'm going to call this a night. Alright, guys. Thank you for staying with me. Yeah, I like these. I like live segments. It tends to go a little bit long, but I like live segments. So, alright, guys. You all have a good night. You can always support the content through Patreon, like the videos, subscribe, etc., etc. Thanks, guys.